Welcome to The Executive Appeal, the show for CEOs of early 8-figure companies who feel like the business only moves when they push. If you're running a $10 to $25 million company and every big decision still rolls up to you, your leaders are smart but misaligned, trust is thinner than you'd like, and you're tired of being the hero that keeps everything moving, this is the room for you. I'm your host, Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. I help CEOs see exactly where their own leadership is bottlenecking speed and trust, and then install one clear leadership operating system so their executives take real ownership and the business can run fast without them in every fire. Each episode of this podcast has 2 parts. First, we spotlight the guest, their story, what they've built, how they think about leading their people. Then we get honest about what's still hard at the top, where things slow down, where trust and ownership break down, and what they're doing to fix it. No theory, just what actually worked in the room when the cameras were off. Now, let's meet today's guest. Hey, what's good, brother? How you living, man?
Hey, how you doing, Alex? Good to be here.
I am, as my mother would say, and my grandmother would say, I am blessed and highly favored.
All right. I love it.
I have been looking forward to this conversation for such a long time. And admittedly, I'm sorry for all the audience who couldn't be in the room when we were and I were talking before now, because you are hilarious. But I know you're gonna share some of that hilariousness with us. Just to jump in, bro. So Darrin, it feels like, and it looks like you've just been a rock star forever. It feels like it. Again, you communications executive with over 30 plus years, leading communication teams and marketing campaigns for public and private sector organizations, energy, technology, stability, sustainability, and now you've landed this amazing role where you get to impact so many people and organizations across the world at Edelman, which, dude, it's the world's largest communications firm. I need to understand, let us understand, help us understand, how did Darrin become the Darrin?
Well, yeah, I got my start really very interested in politics. I went to Washington, D.C., went to George Washington University. And I was always drawn because, I always felt that politics was where you went and made the world a better place. Sadly, I don't think there are as many people that feel that way now as they did when I was at that age. But I still think that's true. I mean, you have the potential to have an impact on so many lives, see problems, and then work with other people to help solve them. So I got my start in politics. From there, went to the Transportation Security Administration, was a spokesperson there, helped design the 311 for carry-ons campaign that I think most people have seen at airports. Mm-hmm. And then went to Booz Allen Hamilton. One of my most exciting professional opportunities at Booz Allen was working with the U.S. military to help soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines be more energy efficient, and not only turn the lights off in the barracks, but also in the job that you do. And it was really rewarding to not only have an impact. We saved over $1 billion in fuel and electricity costs through our campaign, but also to see the battlefield impact. I mean, as you're able to be more efficient, you're able to do more. And that's even more important in today's world. And then from there, just went to Edelman. I've always been passionate about energy, had an opportunity to go to Edelman and really be a part of building up their energy practice, working not only with the U.S. Department of Energy as a client, but also a lot of the global brands that you're probably aware of in the energy space. So I just feel really blessed that I get a chance to work in an area that I'm passionate about in energy and get to do something that I love, which is, help and tell my clients' stories.
So it's so cool. So you started off in the Fed, or you were in the Fed. Mm-hmm. And when you say the Fed, the federal government, everyone, keep up. What's called, and you ultimately ended up over at Edelman as an ex, dude, executive vice president. That's not, it's not anything to scoff at. What do you think prepared you for that role? Like what experiences provided you with the skills and or background to be successful in this role and even be sought after in this role?
Yeah, I think one of the things when I was working at TSA, I mean, my first day there was the second week that TSA existed. So this was like right after 9/11.
Yeah.
And what part of my role was to go around. There would be usually a reporter would call and say, we heard about this thing. There was like poor spending here. This contract was a problem, or this program is being delayed. TSA was really kind of a pinata for Democrats, Republicans, a lot of people. And we were just trying to do the best that we could. But my job was to go around the building once we get this call and figure out what the real story was.
Yeah.
I'd talk to the program manager. I would say, hey, this reporter's calling. They're saying that this amount of funds wasn't appropriately spent, or, there's this issue. And I had to talk with them. And naturally, everyone in that kind of situation becomes very defensive. So I had to be a little empathetic and be like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm your defender. I'm your flak jacket, is a term we use a lot of times. And let me help you tell this story and figure out what the facts are so that I can go back to this reporter and properly represent the organization. And I think that ability to sort of just present yourself and be open, and also be able to get to the facts, because a lot of people just want to kind of put up a wall. Yeah. And I'll just say, hey, listen, I understand. I'm here for you, but I got to figure out what the real story is. And so that sort of balance of empathy and investigative reporter kind of thing was a skill that I've used over and over again as the years have gone on.
Can I ask you a follow-up on
Yeah.
that? How did you develop those skills? Like that I mean, it's sad that to feel like not everyone has the empathetic skill or empathy skill. But even if we just focus specifically on the investigative reporter piece, how did you grow that? Did you just naturally, were you just born with an investigative reporter type of persona, or did you do something that you ultimately learned and got better and so on and so forth? And did you notice it was a skill you needed to learn?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a part there that I had developed younger as a skill, that the kind of empathy and the inquisitive nature. When I was in Boy Scouts as a teen, a lot of times you're thrust into these situations where maybe two other young boys are having an argument, or something's going on, and you kind of have to step in there and just kind of bring down the temperature of a discussion and understand, put yourself in the shoes of other people. How are they feeling? Why are they getting so upset? And meeting them where they are. So that was sort of a skill that I came into it. Something that I developed in the role was thinking like a reporter, because what I would do the first few times I did it, and I would talk to somebody and they would just be like, oh, this is garbage, blah, 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 go. And I'd be like, okay, well, they said it was garbage. Blah. And then I go to the reporter and they would ask another question and another question, and I wouldn't have an answer. And I was like, I need to come better armed. So then in the future, I'm asking more questions. And a lot of times they're the same question, like who approved whatever, what was the dollar amount, why did you do this versus something else? And so you start to think like the reporter because you're getting exposed to it.
So I have a direction I want to go. Let's see if I can walk you there without telling you where I'm going. What do most people not get about communications?
I think the number one thing is, I think a lot of people, and I know this because I'll talk to my family about, hey, what do you do? A lot of people think that it is just one way, that you're trying to sell something, you're trying to persuade, and in some cases a little bit disingenuous, like you're trying to trick me or you're trying to make me think something that I don't. what real good communication is two-way. And, getting back to that empathy thing and the listening to whomever you're talking to or whomever you're engaging with, understanding what their challenges are, what they care about, why they think the way they think, and then sort of saying, okay, I hear you, but what about this? And trying to put yourself in their shoes and, tell the story that you want to tell, but in a way that resonates with them.
Yeah. So what I've found, and it's very interesting, and maybe I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Over the years, I've worked with many teams implementing programs, policies, um, leadership development, and there is I want to say a lack of focus, but a, not understanding just how important working with comms is. Um, it's like the whole thing of like, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's there, did it make a sound? Like, I consistently run into people and organizations where I'm like, look, you're doing some great work, but no one knows about it. Like, what strategy or plan do you have to communicate this? Have you seen differently? Let's stop there. Like, have you seen differently?
No, I've seen that a lot, not only from people in the rank and file of an organization, but also at the most senior levels where they're just like, whatever, this reporter called, it's a bad story, just kill it. Or I'm just not going to talk to them and it'll go away. And it really gets back to that two-way communication. The communications function, if it's working properly in an organization, should be the one who's, raising their hand in the boardroom saying, hey, your stakeholders think this, or you've got to remember, and you think about organizations that may have a labor union contingent. And it's like, listen, if you guys are going to do that, this is what the union's going to say. I'm not advocating for the union. I'm just saying this is the perspective.
Exactly.
And the same with your customers or policymakers or whomever. You really need to be that voice for what those other people are doing in the room.
So it's almost like, this is what I advocate for anyways. Yes, you have the comms department leader, so on and so forth, but every leader should understand comms, because it's, again, like you said, it's not what you say, but how is the audience going to interpret it? And that should guide how you roll things out, how you phrase things. It should guide a lot. Like, even for, and I'll bring this down to the personal level, when we're looking to help an executive leader make some adjustments, some behavioral adjustments. So we may do like a 360, start off there, understand the perception of what people are saying and think about them, because their perception influences everything they hear, right? They think you're a liar. Everything you say, they're gonna think you're lying, right? So we understand their perceptions. And then I always tell people, like, there's almost is it a desire to surprise people, like, oh, I'm just gonna get better. And I'm like, well, you could also just tell them, hey, I'm working on this. To bring their attention to it. It's like, for me, it's communication. How do you make sure this change gets communicated? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the important thing is thinking about the other person, the person who's receiving the communication, and what do they care about and how do they think? And that's how you need to talk. I mean, a lot of times, and I see this with companies who put out press releases, and it's like, this is the greatest thing. And it's like, sometimes the words you can't even understand because they're so like jargony, but also it's like, but why is it relevant to me?
Yes.
And you need to start in your communication with, who is the other person? What do they care about? Why is what I'm doing relevant to them? And then talk about it from there.
Well, and to your point, I mean, the reality is that everything around us is fighting for our attention. That means the people you're trying to talk to, they're paying attention to a whole lot of other things. Why should they pay attention to you versus something else, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I remember the ice bucket challenge. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Like maybe even 10 years ago.
Did you do it?
Everybody was like, that's genius, man. You just pour water over your head and we're donating money. And then everybody did it. And then suddenly everything became the ice bucket challenge, where it was just like,
Yeah.
but why are you dumping water on your head? Like I don't even know that some people knew why they were dumping water on their head.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not just about grabbing attention. You've also got to really be grounded in something that you want to communicate and that's authentic to you as well.
Well, at this level, again, please educate me. I can be completely wrong, but I would feel at this level, you're probably not doing all of the in the weeds work. You have teams that do these things. You're leading strategy and whatnot. How do you, how do you mentor? How do you coach? How do you make sure the people around you um, know these things, operate in a certain way? Like how do you develop the people around you to make sure that they're communicating effectively in the manner that needs to be that leads to success?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, there's a piece of it that's osmosis, that like being in the room, you learn from others. I learn from my colleagues when I'm in the room with them and I see how they operate, how they
Mhm.
communicate, the things that they do. One of the things that was lost with COVID when people, were no longer working in the same building is you lost some of
Mm.
that learning. And I think now our office is hybrid, so we get, I think, kind of the best of both worlds there. But I think it's also important to take time, like at the end of a meeting, especially with junior people, to sort of step aside and be like, hey, what do you think about that? Did you have any questions? Um, and also throughout the meeting, taking a step back, seeing where the conversation goes, see if junior people, are going to engage. And then if they don't, then you kind of step in and bring forth whatever, needs to be brought forth. But I think it's really important to have junior staff presenting in meetings, having a defined role so that they get more comfortable.
This is almost a side, but I promise you it's aligned. Um, I still remember my first briefing. So I was 23. I was 23 years old. My job was to create and manage the executive leadership development program for the Department of the Interior. And so, I'm doing my work. I created this really nice briefing for my executive. Again, I'm 23, and it's the executive I'm working with. And I draft the briefing. I give it to her. We go to the meeting with all the assistant secretaries and all these big time executives. And then she stands up. She says, "Okay, so we're gonna talk about executive leadership development. Go on, Alex." And she hands the brief to me. Oh my God. I I about had a heart attack. I remember like my hand is shaking and I'm sweating and all kind of stuff. And the takeaway from that meeting, which I still remember to this day, was that, oh, they're people, okay. And I moved forward with the ability to interact with this group consistently, um, because, like you said, they didn't try to keep me out the room. They allowed me to experience it and say, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you get better. Um, Again, I still do feel like there's way too many organizations that feel like if you're executive, you can come here. If you're not, you're not. And until you're an executive, you're not going to come here. But when we get here, I expect you to already be here. But what? How does that work?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important, especially in presentations, meetings, to identify chunks, and it's like, this is the chunk you own.
Mm,
And, if you want to get someone comfortable with it, then you talk with them and say, hey, how are we going to present this idea? But give them a piece. And then they know too, going in the meeting, getting just said, hey, go with it. That can be a lot of risk for you. And I
I would not
prefer to
advocate
have
that.
you have these 5 slides, or you're going to present on this section, and we'll practice it together, get it right. But I think that's the best way to do
Yeah, let me be clear. I would not recommend doing that. That was
it.
that was
Not a
not
best
fun.
practice.
I I did want to throw at you one more question kind of in this vein. What is the what do you think? So I was the other day I was sitting down and no, I'm not gonna do like that. I'm gonna do it this way. What what do you think where do you think is there value in humor in the workplace?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we very frequently can get so stuck in the work that we kind of forget our common humanity, how we work together. And at the end of the day, we're all going home to, our family or to our friends or whatever. And we're human. We had a situation last week where I was working with the team, and tomorrow was the presentation with the client, and we were kind of a little bit behind. People were stressed out, and they were like, well, let's pull in this piece from the baby formula company, and I think this is really important. I was like, oh man, they make the best stuff. And everybody just sort of started laughing, and we're like, I need a minute, because, here's the boss, and he's expecting, everything to be at a high level. But I think every once in a while you need to kind of break it up with humor. And then everybody can kind of relax a little bit. Now, at the end of the day, the product still has to be there, and you still have to work together as a team. And if the products aren't there, then, you might have to get serious. But I think in the run of the mill day that it's very important to use humor here and there.
I'm 100% with you. Quick question. Do you have a great team, but it still feels like you're doing all the thinking and things aren't moving as fast as they could? I built a free 10-minute executive leadership diagnostic to show you exactly where trust, proactivity, and productivity are leaking on your team and what to focus on this quarter. If you're watching, scan the QR code on your screen now. If you're listening, go to gpsleadership.org/diagnostic. You'll also find the link in the episode description. Now, back to today's episode. You mentioned humanity. It's actually very interesting because I feel like this should be a fairly simple thing to do. But at the same time, I do respect and I do understand that people are complex, that everyone comes to the table, everyone comes to the office, everyone comes to wherever they are with a whole host of experiences, again, some positive, some negative, that have shaped their perception of the world and their views in the world. You and I were talking before about, we were just chatting like how important it is to realize that we're kind of all on this big blue ball together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind saying more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think especially in the workplace, and this can come through in a lot of different ways. I think sometimes we can forget that the people we're working with are human, and that can be, we know that so many times there'll be some news story in the day that happens, hey, we're at war, or hey, this situation happened. And that can mean a lot to someone. It can be really impactful. And so I think there needs to be that empathy with our coworkers. But there's also a piece of, coming to the table and respecting the different viewpoints as you're developing your work as well. Mm-hmm. Because you can get in a situation, depending on, the geography you live in, might be very Republican or might be very Democrat, or you might work with a lot of young people. I remember in one of the projects that I worked on with the U.S. Air Force, we had a team, and we had one guy who was 25 years old, young, really understood social media, and was partnered with another guy who was near the end of his career, very, very well respected, former colonel in the military. And the two of them were the best team. They would go in and meet with clients, and a lot of the clients knew or just had a lot of respect for the older gentleman. But the younger guy had this expertise in social media and was bringing forward these great ideas. And so the older gentleman would introduce, get things started, and then turn it over. And then by the end of the discussion, everybody loved them. And it was like, this is a great idea, and let's move forward. But it was really the idea that they worked so well together, even though they were, of different generations. And I think whether it's political, whether it's age, whether it's geography, just the idea of the diversity, listening to each other, taking the things that we're all good at, and leveraging that makes the workplace better, makes our work products better.
If I can share a quick story like the one you shared, there is this woman I worked with years ago. Worked on this big project together, um, and we were at each other's throats. She just kept giving me stuff that was absolutely not important. I had other things to worry about. We're dealing with congressional people and like media. Like I got to get these things done, and I'm telling her this stuff, and she's like, "No, we got to get the name tints and this and we were at each other's throats until like at some point I don't know what clicked, and we're like, oh, we're perfect together because all the stuff that she hated and or did was not interested in thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
I loved, and then vice versa, and we just became the dynamic duo for a few years that we worked together. And what I'm hearing is I think whenever I'm presented with a challenge, I always try to remember to say, how can I? Right? It's not like, oh, this is I can or can't. It's not I can't do it. It's how can I? What can I do? And maybe it's the same thing with people is, you can be on other sides of many different issues and still say, how can we work together? Because at least that's focused on the possibility, and because there's got to be overlap somewhere, and that overlap is what leads to more overlap and more understanding and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of things that I don't enjoy doing, like that are important parts of my job, and pairing with someone who is, much better at those elements is always great. And it's like, you take that and I take this, and, let's jam together. It's like playing music, like you got your piece, I got my piece, and let's play it together. And, it kind of comes together in a nice harmony.
Well, I'd love to hear from you. Um, so what's hard? So there I do believe there's always a hard, because hard for me, I guess hard means that we're growing, and if there's nothing hard, it must be easy, and it's easy because you've done it so often, and so maybe you should.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, like, so what's still hard about leadership and so on and so forth?
I would say change, and there's kind of a phrase like change is hard, and it's um, almost gets overused. But I think even early in my career, there was always this: times have never changed so quickly. The speed of change is so fast. That was 30 years ago. It is so much faster now. And I think when you look at AI and how that's impacting workplaces, it's almost like infinity, where it's just like, how do I incorporate AI? But my competitors are using AI, and maybe they're doing it this way and they're doing it fast. It's very it's a lot. And I think change right now can really stress people out to the point where you're either rejecting change,
Yeah.
and I've come across a lot of people who like are rejecting AI tools just because they said, like, I'm not comfortable with it, I don't want to learn it, and it's cheating or something, like there's
Hmm.
different rationales. And then there are other people who are just accepting it whole cloth and not really thinking about, well, how do I incorporate AI into what I do? Because there are things that I do that a computer can't,
Yeah.
and there are things that I do that other humans don't do. So what
Yeah.
do I do that's unique to me, that I'm really good at, and how can AI allow me to do it better, faster, and that? And so I think that as a leader, incorporating AI, working with your teams and their varying levels of resistance, I think is a big challenge that we have now, and is going to be a challenge for the next few years.
I I know that this is a the question is a loaded question because society hasn't figured this out yet. Um, but to your point, where do you think that middle ground is? There's the people who say no, not doing anything. There's people who say, yes, I'm doing everything, but probably the middle ground with the best, safest place. I don't want to say safe in a bad word. I'm just saying the most ethical place, whatever, right? Is somewhere in the middle. Like, how do you judge? How do you currently, how do you decide where to lean in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, it's important to learn as much as you can about the technology, whether it's AI or another technology or a tool, and be very conscious of how you're incorporating it. Because if you find, like, hey, I'm just turning around a product and I haven't even looked at it. Hey, I just built it and I sent it out, and now someone's paying me for that product. Like, there's an issue with that.
Yeah.
So you really need to think about the work that you're developing and what are you bringing to the table. And if I stepped away, or if someone else doing this work was doing it, would I still have value? And I think being just present a little bit, like, you don't need to dwell on it, or have it slow you down too much. But I think it's just something to be present in the work, in new technologies as they're developing, and making sure that you're incorporating them in an ethical way that you're comfortable with.
I love it. I love it. I guess last question I'll throw your way before I start opening the floor, because I know we have to wrap up soon. Um, I believe this is the last question. We'll see. I have the control. Um, have you ever worked around a team that you felt was misaligned, um, wasn't as efficient, effective as they could have been? And how did you? What made you notice it, and then what did you do about it?
Yeah, and I'll say I've been in this situation myself. One of the things, working in an agency, and having worked at Booz Allen and now at Edelman a lot. I mean, I'm on a new team every maybe couple of months, and even weeks. So I've seen this happen multiple times, where you get kind of two people who want to run the show, and they have different visions and they want to do things differently. And I think when in that position, you just need to sit down and have a conversation, and I'll approach that conversation saying, listen, I'm happy to step back and I will be your doer. I will execute whatever you want, but like, here's what I think. And sometimes they'll say, oh, I didn't know I was being so pushy. You're right. I should really, like, let's split this in half. In some cases they're like, yeah, get out of my way, like, whatever it is. But that problem isn't going to solve itself. If
Yeah.
if you've got two people who are butting heads and both want to lead, it's not going to solve itself. So I think, one of the real things is understanding on a team what the different roles are, who does what, and then establishing, clear lines of responsibility.
I think that answer is an amazing answer. And if I can call out one thing you said specifically, which is your willingness to have the initial conversation. Um, most, so many people are unwilling to have that initial conversation because they can be uncomfortable. Are they going to yell at me? Are they going to get upset? What's going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, until you have that conversation, you don't have any data. You don't know what that person was thinking. Like you said, sometimes they're thinking, yeah, yeah, go on, get out my way. But sometimes they're like, oh shoot, I didn't know I was coming across that like that. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think, you know, two things. So one, I was recently working with a leader, like last month, and they told me they're upset and they're not feeling great because they're gonna have to lay someone off for performance reasons. And I was like, okay, cool. So let's talk about this. And they say, okay, yeah, they got promoted to this position. They were promoted to this position like 8 9 months ago. Um, and they just haven't been performing. And I'm like, okay, so what have your conversations with them been like? And the person was like, oh, well, I haven't told him yet. Um, and I'm like, whoa, what? So it's like, well,
Yeah.
I should have told him like 6 months ago, but I'm like, whoa. So again, there's performance issues, but as a leader, it is your job, it's your responsibility to have that conversation, because otherwise you're not giving someone the chance to get better. They may not know they're doing something incorrect. And so I really appreciate your willingness to have those conversations, because that's where you get the data where you can make decisions.
And ultimately, you got to solve the problem. So many times in these situations, you're wasting time, or you're developing a poor product, and you're spinning your wheels doing one thing, or two people are doing the same job. And so it can be difficult to have those conversations, but you have to realize, like, is it harder to have a 5-minute conversation and figure this out? Or do we want to just let this go on for weeks and waste a lot of time, and everybody gets frustrated? Yeah. And I don't get as much time with my family because I'm spending the night redoing the work that should have been done right before. So I think people don't always want to get over that. It can be difficult to have those conversations, but it's a lot worse to have to redo work and waste time.
Preach, brother, preach. When I get done here, I'm gonna go out and get a sip of this baby formula I'm looking at.
Nothing, man. You're dragging. It's better than 2-hour energy or whatever.
Hey, again, you're freaking amazing. I want to open the floor for you. Is there anything you have to share with the audience as we begin to wrap up?
No, I mean, I think we talked a lot about it. I think one of the things for people who aren't communications professionals, when you're working with a communications professional, a key element is that ability to put yourself in the shoes of other people, to create two-way conversation that helps you connect. And I think at the core is some empathy, but it's also understanding other people, understanding we're all human. And those are, sort of key elements, not only for interpersonal communication, but communication for the organization. While I'm at Edelman, I, lead our energy sector practice. And one of the things that we always try to do for our clients is identify what are those challenges your stakeholders are facing, and how can we help you, address that. So I think that would be the one takeaway I would have, is the importance of two-way communication and really putting yourself in the shoes of your audiences.
Dude, again, I know I'm like the exec ed guy, like the, coaching guy, but I always kind of saw myself as a comms guy. Because I mean, dude, communications is everything. You don't communicate, no one knows what you're doing. So I love and appreciate the work you do so much, the work that your team does. And then also just you as an individual, as a leader, and as a partner of all that stuff, because you're freaking amazing, dude.
No, thanks. And thanks for having me on the show, Alex. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, now you just unintentionally volunteered to be on next week. Okay, so before you get back out, thank you. Dude, again, I'm telling you, I've been literally looking forward to this conversation for the last 3 weeks. I saw your name on my calendar. I'm like, yes, sir. So again, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate being here. Everyone, what I'm going through. Go on and put that like, go on and comment. Please let us know, what did you find to be your aha moment? What hit you a certain type of way? And again, if it hit you a certain type of way, I promise you, if you found value in it, someone else will find value in it. So please don't keep it to yourself. Each one, teach one. I came with that myself. As always, stay strong, stay positive, stay moving. See you. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and in speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.